The Chargers have made the perfect move to put themselves back into the playoff hunt. It's not a move that'll draw them necessarily closer to a Super Bowl, but one that will keep their season afloat as Justin Herbert tries to deliver once again under pressure. What's up, everyone? I'm Sam Peña, a Bolt fan in the Berg for Chargers Digest, where we talk about all things Lightning. I know in my last video I was, let's just say, very sad about the loss of Joe Alt. It felt like the season was over. I felt like the Chargers weren't even going to make the playoffs. But Joe Hortiz finally decided to make a move by trading for Trevor Penning, the offensive guard out of New Orleans. Now, Penning isn't somebody who I think is going to come in and play anywhere near the level of Joe Alt or Rashawn Slater, but he is someone who could bring a little bit of versatility and maybe just a little bit of a stabilizing presence to be able to hold off those pass rushers and give Herbert and the Chargers a chance to be able to close out the season strong and make a playoff push. So I want to talk a little bit about what Trevor Penning's role is going to be on the Chargers and what it could look like beyond this season, looking forward to 2026 and 2027, which is really the years where I think the Chargers might have a chance to compete for a Super Bowl. So without further ado, let's talk about it. First of all, obviously, when we're talking about the Chargers, we have to talk about the loss of Joe Alt. You're not going to be able to replace a player like this either through the trade market or through free agency. If there is an offensive tackle on his level out there, he's either going to be under a long-term contract or a team that's not going to want to trade him even if he only has a year or so left on that contract. Teams don't get rid of franchise tackles. It's just not a move they make. And of course, franchise tackles just aren't out there in free agency at this point in the season. So I knew going into the trade deadline that the Chargers weren't going to be able to get a player of Alt or Slater's caliber, but I was hoping that they might be able to find somebody who could provide just a solid presence for them. And I think Penning can provide that. The news broke obviously yesterday that Penning was traded to the Bolts for a 2026 sixth-round pick. And Penning is someone who has had a little bit of an up and down to his career. If you take a look right now at his last 3 years in the league, the first year he was at left tackle, the second year he was at right tackle, and the third year, this year, he's been at left guard. And you can kind of see some mixed results. He really struggled as a rookie at left tackle and clearly showed that he wasn't meant to be there for long. They moved him over to the right tackle position where he started to show some growth, particularly as a run blocker. But for some reason, New Orleans decided to move him to guard, even though he had never played that position before. And he has really struggled with that move. This is actually his grade in 2024 at the right tackle position. You can see his pass blocking was not the greatest, but according to PFF, he had a 70.1 run blocking grade, which rated him 33rd out of all NFL guards. That's solid, and that's something the Chargers could absolutely use since the running game has been abysmal. But fast forward to this year when he was shifted over to left guard, and all of the numbers across the board have dropped. Right now, he's only 64th out of 78 when it comes to starting guards, and this shows up on his tape. When I was diving into it and looking at some of the tape that the New Orleans Saints beat writers have been putting out there for Penning, you can see his struggles to be able to identify the correct blitz pickups up front. And you also see him struggle to be able to navigate the traffic along the interior to get to the second level and take out the opposing linebackers. Those are critical things you need to be able to do if you're going to play guard in the NFL, and Penning really wasn't able to do it. I think it was a bad decision all the way around for the Saints to be able to move him to guard, especially since he was showing growth at the tackle position year after year. Now, when you take a look at his ability to pass protect, it's something that's a little wanting, but it's not because of any physical ability. He's a very good athlete. The problem is simply his technique. He continually allows the defenders into his chest, pushing him off, which creates a lot of that separation that they need to be able to duck inside and get after the quarterback. That's something he's going to have to clean up if he wants to continue playing at the NFL level. And when I was looking at when we're looking at where the Chargers are going to play him this next year, I think the answer is going to be tackle. Daniel Popper reported when he asked Trevor Penning today about where he was practicing. Penning said that he's been practicing at both tackle spots, left and right. And this is something that's very hard for any offensive tackle, by the way, to be able to do in the NFL. Switching between left and right is not easy, and Penning himself commented on this. He said it definitely was challenging. It's like writing with your left hand when you're right-handed. It takes time, but I've put a lot of work on it. Coming from college, though, I only played left tackle, so when I played right tackle, it was a little bit interesting. It was hard to adapt, but then you you settle in, get the rhythm down, and figure out how to play it. You just do different things on each side. And that's something that I think not a lot of people recognize, and especially not Charger fans, because Joe Alt was able to adapt to that change so easily. Joe Alt was playing left tackle basically his entire career at Notre Dame. Then he switched on over to right tackle last year's rookie year, was phenomenal. And then this year when Slater went down, he moved back to left tackle and was phenomenal again. But Joe Alt is an all-pro level talent. Most tackles are not going to be able to do that. Most players, when you're asking them to switch sides, it's going to take time for them to adjust to that. And for the Saints, they have done that 3 times to Penning. I don't think the Chargers are going to do that, though. I think they're going to put him at tackle and just hope for the best. And his best could potentially lead to success for the Chargers. When you take a look at the scouting reports that were coming out on him, according to NFL Draft Buzz, they repeatedly mentioned his inability to be able to control leverage and in being able to lose the leverage battles to pass rushers with a quick first step. This is going to be an interesting challenge for him this upcoming week against the Steelers. They have a couple of pass rushers who can give Penning several different looks, specifically TJ Watt, who can power rush you or beat you to the edge with his first steps. Penning is going to have an immediate test right off the get-go. I think he's going to lose quite a few of those battles, but I think he's definitely going to play at a higher level than Jamari Salyer would have. I think Penning just has the better raw athleticism to be able to deal with those rushers. When you take a look at his RAS score coming out of college from Northern Iowa, he was actually one of the best athletes at the position in the entire class. He was rated 6th out of 168 that year when it came to offensive tackles for overall athleticism. You saw it with his vertical jump, his broad jump, and his height, weight, and speed all across the board. He was an elite athlete in the 90th percentile at almost every single one of those tests. And it shows on tape. You see him being able to get to the second level. You see him being able to cut off blockers when they try to get to the edge. Where he struggles is when they then convert that speed into power, get into his chest, and knock him off his feet. He's going to have to learn to adjust to that. And it's hard to be able to ask a player to adjust to that when you're constantly switching them from side to side to side. The Chargers are going to be doing that once again by asking him to move to guard to tackle, but fortunately he does have 2 years of starting tackle experience in the NFL, so hopefully that adjustment isn't going to be as strong. But it's something that's going to be crucial for the Chargers' success the rest of the way. When you look at Danny Parkins on First Things First, he brought up that Herbert has been pressured 165 times this year. That's the most of any quarterback in the NFL, and it's the most by a mile. The second quarterback on that list has been pressured 30 less times than Herbert. And Harbaugh knows that's going to be a challenge, and he's currently working to be able to address that. But Daniel Popper brought up an interesting point on this in his article today when talking about the Penning trade. He pointed out that right now, Penning's contract only has $1.3 million left on it, which means that the Chargers' cap space is going to be very flexible in 2026. This is a team that if they want to try to retain Penning next year, they absolutely could do that, or they could use the over $35 million in cap space they're going to have next year to try to go big game hunting and try to get one of those interior offensive linemen and hope that Alt and Slater both come back healthy and ready to go. When Harbaugh was asked about Penning, he stated that it's great to be able to have someone who has versatility. He said he was a great fit with the room, and he said that he loved his ability to be able to finish on drives. I think this is going to be a testing period for Penning since he is in the final season of that contract to see if he's going to earn a spot next year on the team, and that would make it a lot easier if Penning does have some success to be able to retain him next year as a swing tackle. Tackles are very, very hard to find in any offseason. If the Chargers can find somebody who fits within their system that they can retain for next season to back up Alt and Slater, you're going to feel a little bit better next year if one of them were once again to go down. And let's be honest, when it comes to the Chargers, it seems inevitable that somebody is going to come down. So having an offensive tackle who can hold it down while they are gone is going to be crucial. Alt and Slater have also both suffered pretty serious injuries as well. It sounds like Alt's injury isn't going to affect his long-term career, but this is an injury that could potentially be bleeding into next season as well. As for Rashawn Slater, his injury is one where most players don't come back and play at the same level ever again. When you take a look at a patellar tendon tear, this is an injury that could potentially hamper you for the entire rest of your career. So having somebody who could slide in for Slater if he continues to struggle coming back from that injury is very important. And Penning, listen, Penning is not going to be the savior of the Chargers. He isn't going to come in and deliver them to a Super Bowl, but he is someone who can provide that steady presence. If the Chargers want to make a final playoff push, they're going to have to make adjustments. And the first adjustment they're going to have to make is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Thank you all so much again for watching. I'm Sam Peña here at Chargers Digest. Would really appreciate it if you guys could like and subscribe. We're trying to build the channel here from the ground up. I know Bolts fans, this has been a long season full of ups and downs. Hopefully this has been a bit of good news that you were able to hear. I know Penning isn't someone who is music to our ears, but he is somebody who I think we should welcome with open arms and hope for the best. Once again, Bolt Nation, until I see you next time, remember, Bolt up.